Welcome to this deep dive. We're digging into the latest whispers and outright talk about Formula One driver moves for 2026.
Yeah, things are definitely starting to heat up for that season already.
Absolutely. And you shared some really interesting material, specifically focusing on Sergio Perez's future. There's, quite a buzz online.
hmm Especially, it seems, from F1 blogs. They've been covering reports about Perez potentially talking to Alpine.
Right, F1 blogs will be leaning on their insights quite a bit today. So our mission really is to try and figure out Perez's potential landing spots, what's driving these talks, and I guess what it all means for the F1 grid down the line.
Sounds good. It's always fascinating, isn't it, how these driver market stories kind of bubble up and evolve.
It really is.
So the main thing F1 blogs is highlighting is that Perez's management, his team, seem to be looking at options for 2026.
Oh, okay.
And Alpine has, well, emerged as one of those possibilities.
But strictly 2026, right? That's the key takeaway F1 blogs emphasizes.
Exactly. It's important to stress the time frame here. This isn't, an immediate threat or change for Alpine's current drivers next year for 2025.
So Gasly and Colapinto are set for now, according to this.
That seems to be the implication from the F1 blogs report, yeah. This is purely looking ahead.
Okay, so let's unpack this Perez-Alpine link more. F1 blog says initial conversations have actually happened between Perez's side and Alpine.
That's the report, yes. Initial talks regarding a potential drive in 2026.
And crucially, Perez still has Carlos Slim's backing. F1 blogs mentions that too. That's significant, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Having that kind of substantial financial support, it definitely adds weight when you're negotiating in F1.
Yeah, I bet.
And F1 blogs noted, interestingly, that Carlos Slim Domet, Slim's son, was actually at the Miami Grand Prix.
Really?
Yeah, apparently watching the race with meetings specifically about Perez's future.
Wow. So direct involvement, that signals they're serious.
It certainly suggests a serious level of commitment. And it's worth remembering, as F1 blogs points out, this isn't the very first time Perez and Alpine, or Renault as they were, have been linked.
Ah, okay. History there.
There were similar rumors sort of swirling around back in 2025 about him potentially moving.
Right. Okay, now this is where F1 blogs introduces another layer, which I find really interesting. Franco Colapinto's situation at Alpine. He's got this deal, right? Starting 5 races for them, starting Emilia-Romagna.
That's correct. He's scheduled for those 5 initial races.
What's the feeling about these short-term tryouts? They must be incredibly high pressure.
Immense pressure. F1 blogs highlights that his performance in just those 5 races is going to be, well, critical for his future there. It's a proper audition under the brightest lights.
Yeah, no kidding.
And what F1 blogs reported, which I found quite specific and noteworthy, is that if Colapinto doesn't, make the cut or continue, the next driver apparently in line isn't Rio Haryanto or Jack Doohan, who you might expect from their junior program.
Okay.
But Pol Espargaro.
Pol Espargaro. From MotoGP, that's unexpected.
It is a bit left field, isn't it? F1 blogs mentions him specifically. It suggests Alpine might be thinking quite differently about their options if Colapinto doesn't work out immediately.
I mean, maybe this ties into that other theory F1 blogs is exploring about Carlos Slim and Alpine potentially collaborating more broadly.
Exactly. That's the connection F1 blogs seems to be making. It might not just be about finding Perez a seat.
So what's the angle there?
Well, the suggestion, as F1 blogs puts it, is that Slim's meetings could involve a wider commercial partnership.
Okay.
Potentially involving Flavio Briatore, who, remember, is connected with Colapinto's management team.
Ah, Briatore. Right, so connecting the dots.
The theory F1 blogs lays out is maybe Slim's companies, Telmex, Telcel.
The big sponsors.
Right. They could potentially sponsor Colapinto directly, which would, in turn, help secure his place within the Alpine team structure.
So almost like a strategic sponsorship play. Slim helps Colapinto, maybe paving the way or sweetening the deal for Perez later.
It could be something like that.
Yeah.
F1 blogs implies this kind of sponsorship might strengthen Colapinto's position, maybe make that initial 5-race deal a bit more secure if he's bringing significant backing.
That's fascinating. It really shows how money talks potentially influencing driver choices alongside pure performance.
It definitely raises that question, doesn't it? The balance between talent, potential, and, well, the commercial realities of F1.
Okay, let's shift back to Perez himself. F1 blog seems pretty positive about the idea of him staying on the grid for 2026, maybe with Alpine.
Yeah, they seem to view it as a good thing for the sport if he finds a competitive seat.
They also mentioned that Cadillac was initially seen as, his main option.
That was the thinking for a while, yes. Yeah. Cadillac seemed like a primary target.
So how different are those two options, Alpine versus Cadillac, for someone like Perez?
Well, they're quite different projects, aren't they? As F1 Blogs notes, Perez himself has said he'd only come back or stay if the project really motivated him and if the team truly valued his experience.
Right.
Cadillac is, brand new, an American team that fits a certain profile, as F1 Blogs discusses contracts, sponsorships, image, all that stuff.
A clean slate, kind of.
Exactly. Whereas Alpine's obviously an established team, but one that's going through quite a bit of change itself.
And F1 Blogs really digs into why Cadillac could be such a good fit, mentioning his Force India days.
Yeah, that's a really crucial point F1 Blogs makes. His time at Force India, which became Racing Point, then Aston Martin.
Right.
He wasn't just a driver there. He showed real leadership. He understood the business side, the development direction.
He helped keep them afloat sometimes, didn't he?
He really did. And that kind of experience, F1 Blogs argues, is incredibly valuable for a completely new outfit like Cadillac. Mm-hmm. They need someone to help build the team, not just drive the car.
Makes sense. A guiding hand.
Precisely.
Okay, but looking at Alpine again as the alternative, F1 Blogs points out they've got big changes coming in 2026 too. Briatore's arrival, Mercedes engines, a new Alpine gearbox.
Yeah, a lot going on there, a major transition.
So how could Perez's experience fit in there? Is it just as valuable?
F1 Blogs rightly highlights that it could be very beneficial. A driver like Perez, he's seen it all, hasn't he? Different regulations, team structures, engine suppliers.
He's adaptable.
Very. He could bring stability and, really useful technical feedback doing what might be a bumpy transition for Alpine.
There's always a but.
There is. The big question F1 Blogs raises is, how does he fit in dynamics-wise? With Gasly already there, potentially Colapinto staying long-term, team chemistry is notoriously tricky.
Yeah, finding that balance. Okay, F1 Blogs also mentioned that Perez's team isn't putting all their eggs in one basket. They're exploring multiple options.
That's the word, yes. Reportedly looking at maybe 3 or 4 different possibilities for 2026.
And having several potential offers, that obviously strengthens your hand in negotiations.
Massively. As F1 Blogs points out, it creates leverage. It means you're not desperate. You can push for better terms or for a project that really truly fits what you're looking for.
Smart strategy. So beyond Alpine and Cadillac, did F1 Blogs speculate on who those other 1 or 2 options might be?
They did throw a few names out there, yeah, but with some caveats. More speculative, perhaps.
Like who?
Well, Audi was mentioned, but that likely depends on what happens with Hülkenberg, maybe Sainz. It's complicated.
Okay.
Haas was seen as less probable. F1 Blogs notes they seem committed to developing Oliver Bearman, and of course Ocon just signed there recently.
Right. Seems unlikely.
Williams also looks like a long shot, according to F1 Blogs. They seem to have their future pairing pretty much locked in with Albon and now Carlos Sainz Jr.
Yeah, that seems settled.
And a return to Red Bull.
Yeah.
F1 Blogs considers that highly unlikely unless, Verstappen were to leave or something really dramatic shifted the whole team dynamic.
So realistically, Alpine and Cadillac seem like the main contenders being discussed.
Based on the F1 Blogs reporting, they certainly appear to be the most concrete options being explored right now.
Okay, so wrapping this all up,
Yeah.
The big picture for Perez, F1 Blogs really stresses that the main positive here is just the possibility that he could still be in F1 come 2026.
Yeah, I think what really shines through in the F1 Blogs analysis is this feeling that Perez still has something left to give in Formula One.
That he hasn't peaked yet, maybe.
Or at least that he deserves a proper competitive final chapter whenever that comes. There's a sense he shouldn't just fade away.
And he'll be, 36 next year? Still perfectly capable in F1 terms?
Absolutely. Age isn't the barrier it once was. And F1 Blogs concludes that particularly the Cadillac move could be really compelling.
How so?
Positioning him as a key leader, maybe the leader, in a really ambitious project from a major American manufacturer, that's a strong narrative.
Yeah, you can see the appeal. So as we finish up this deep dive, it really feels like the 2026 grid is still very much in flux. Lots of moving parts.
Definitely. These Perez rumors, the potential Alpine link, the Colapinto evaluation, Cadillac waiting in the wings, it paints a pretty fascinating picture.
And the strategy behind it all, Carlos Slim's potential dual role, Perez keeping his options open. It really highlights how complex it is just to get or keep one of those 20 seats.
Yeah, it's a high-stakes game, for sure. And yeah, the idea of Perez leading that Cadillac charge into F1, that's definitely a storyline many of us will be watching closely. What's your final take? Where do you think feels like the right fit?
That's tough. I mean, the romantic idea is him leading Cadillac, right? Building something new. But the pragmatist in me sees the value he could bring to Alpine during their big reset, too.
Yeah.
For me, the key thing, like F1 blogs implied, is finding that team where his vast experience isn't just, nice to have, but absolutely central to what they're trying to achieve.
That's a great point. Whether it's navigating change or building from scratch, that experience is gold dust. It really shows there's more to driver value than just raw lap time, especially with these big regulation shifts coming.
Absolutely. Well, that's all we have time for on this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
And hey, if you want more in-depth analysis like this and all the latest updates on Formula One news, rumors, everything, make sure you head over and check out the F1 Blogs channel.
Yeah, they do some great work over there, really digging into the details.
Definitely worth your time. And please don't forget to subscribe to their channel. Keep up with all their latest insights and discussions. Until our next deep dive, keep those racing thoughts turning over.